Hi, this is Stuart Nachbar with Educated Quest. Today, we're going to learn about computer science, a major that has been growing in popularity over and over. Very demanding major as well. And with me today is Professor Andrea Salgian. She is the Associate Chair of the Computer Science Department at the College of New Jersey. Her research interests are in machine learning, computer vision, and artificial intelligence. And those all sound like very sexy topics, particularly for someone like me who reads a lot of science fiction, but does not necessarily understand the science. So, Professor, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
Um, Tell me why, over the years since you've been teaching, why has computer science become a more and more popular major with incoming college students?
Well, computer science is everywhere. Computers are everywhere. And I think at this point, the current generation of college students really grew up with devices. They grew up with smartphones in their hands. They grew up with video games. Many of them got their Chromebooks in elementary school, at school, to do homework. So it's everywhere. They're very comfortable with the technology. It's fun, I think. Of course, I'm in it, so I love it. And definitely not last but not least, there's a lot of jobs, a lot of good jobs. Computer science is one of those majors where when you're graduating, you have something in hand, you know what you're doing.
So is this a cool major and a nerd major at the same time?
Well, it definitely has its I guess the stories and people have their preconceived notions about it. So we absolutely have our nerds who are absolutely proud to be nerds and to be called nerds. But being a nerd is not a requirement. In fact, especially with computer science being everywhere and computers being everywhere, we actually need people who are people who can communicate while doing their job, communicate with other people, and really work on making this world a better place. So is it a cool major? I think absolutely. And but then also all majors can be cool if you look at them the right way. But yeah, definitely with all this technology and the latest stuff and science fiction, as you mentioned, sure, we can. It's a cool major.
Well, with things like science fiction and television presenting aspects of the major, things like robotics and cybersecurity, are the types of people you see on TV that different than the types of people who should study computer science in real life?
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, the people on TV, especially, right, and we're talking fiction here, right? We're not
Right.
talking about the documentaries and the news. So, absolute, those are fictional people, and we're here for real people. The faculty are real people, the students are real people. So. We're here with our qualities and our faults, and so while there's absolutely gonna be some similarities here and there, I think we're much more human than what you would see in fiction.
What are good qualities for someone, truly interested in in studying computer science? What are good qualities for them to have? You mentioned people skills, and as one. What are a few
Yeah.
others?
Yeah, people skills are good everywhere, right? Definitely. But I think a curiosity and an eagerness to learn, the remembering that our field is continuously renewing. So if you enter computer science, you will have to learn for the rest of your life because the technology keeps changing, and if you want to do well, you want to keep up with it. So so the technology that I use, the technology that I teach, was not around when I went to college, and that's the nature of the field. So you have to be ready, and you have to be interested and passionate about that. And of course, interest in STEM fields helps. But as long as you have the curiosity and the desire to learn, I think you're good.
If you met a rising 8th or ninth grader who was with their parents, let's say at a TCNJ open house, what classes would you recommend they take in high school? And what extracurricular activities should they take on in high school to be prepared to enter the major when they get to college?
Well, definitely, the typical math high school curriculum. I would say focus on that. Focus on science. Um, take some computer science classes if they're available at your high school. We know that not all high schools in New Jersey have computer science classes available, and that's okay. We don't expect that from our incoming students, but it's a good opportunity to just check out the field and get a feel for it, get some experience. Um, and yeah, I think that's in general. I would say, take advantage and take all the classes that you're interested in. Don't limit yourself. Math and computer science are definitely important, but don't limit yourself to that. Try to have a breadth of knowledge, and I think the other thing that I would say to an eighth grader at an open house at TCNJ or at any college, I would say, why so early? Don't stress about it that early. Just do your homework and do your studying, and yeah, don't stress about it too much.
If
Yeah.
someone is in love with math and computing and their academics show that, but their academics are weak in subjects like chemistry or physics, will they still do all right in the major, or will they have a more difficult time?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think I think if they're strong in one of the STEM fields, I think that is actually an indication um, that they have good potential in all the STEM fields. Somebody who's doing well in math but not so well in science, I would maybe take another look at that high school science teacher too, and just the science material. And just try not to discourage anyone from the science, if in general, if they're not doing so well in high school.
Do you see kids who've come in as freshmen who have taken an AP computer science course in high school?
Yes, yeah, we do.
And do you give credit for that, or is it just, hey, this is a good starting point, but we're not giving you credit for it?
If it's the AP, so there's two AP computer science courses. One is the AP Computer Science Principles, which is just a general introduction to computer science. And for that, we just give elective liberal learning credit. They would still have to start with the introductory computer science course. However, the other one, computer science, AP Computer Science A, for that we do give credit if the student has a 4 or a 5 on that exam, then they can opt out of taking our first computer science 1 course.
Would you prefer they took it again anyway, that they took it with you anyway? if they had the choice?
It really depends on their experience, and on how it was taught and what they got out of it. I can speak from what I heard from students who took it anyway, and some are happy because we may have emphasized some aspects that were glossed over in high school. Others, however, were bored. So
Okay.
it really depends. Usually at this point, I think it's if they did well on the AP exam, um, we think that they should be able to skip the class. But it's also a matter of self-confidence, um, of the student. I think the student can usually gauge pretty well if that 4 or 5 was really deserved, or it was just a matter of luck that day.
Do people who study this major really need 4 semesters of calculus?
4 semesters of calculus?
Yeah,
No,
that's what they needed
no,
when I was in college.
no, 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 no,
Mm.
no. We only require 1 semester of calculus. And then at this point, we actually have some students who need to take pre-calculus when they come to college, depending on they take a placement test, or we use their test scores to figure out whether they need to be placed into pre-calculus, or they can start with calculus straight away. And then so they take 1 semester. We require 1 semester of calculus, the Calc A. And then for the second semester, they have a choice of Calc B or linear algebra. And we tend to recommend linear algebra because it has more applications in computer science than calculus B. So with calculus A, linear algebra, we also require a semester of college level statistics. So with these 3 courses, plus we teach our own discrete mathematics course. So the total of 4 semesters of math. It's not 4 semesters of calculus, right? It's calculus, calculus B or linear algebra, statistics, and discrete math, and that's what you need for a computer science major at TCNJ.
And if someone is not in love with math, would they have a tough time in this major?
It depends what you mean by not in love with math. That just not in love with math. That doesn't no, that doesn't mean you'll have a tough time. I'm there's different ways of not being in love with math. I was never in love with the theoretical aspect of math. I was always looking for the applications of it, and that's how I ended up in computer science. You definitely need the mathematical foundation, but you can gain that in a good amount of it can be gained in college, right? You don't have to take calculus in high school, for example. And I think really just understanding how that math works in computer and how it's applied in computer science. And once, as long as you understand that and you can use it and you have a love for computer science, I think that's fine.
You make an interesting point. And also a moment ago, you said that there were applications of linear algebra to computer science. What are 1 or 2 applications?
Well, machine learning, artificial intelligence uses linear algebra. Computer graphics uses linear algebra. Databases can also database systems can use some linear algebra concepts. So just a lot of concepts about matrices, and
Do,
Yeah,
do
basically.
do kids who are entering the major from high school know this kind of stuff, or is it
No,
something they learn in college? They learn
this
it
is
in
something they
college.
learn in college. Yeah, yeah. So calculus is actually a prerequisite for linear algebra.
Now, as you've said earlier, obviously technology is advanced. There's more students have come to college with experience with different devices. They had computers at home. We didn't have them in when I was in high school. Are they, do you find over the, especially recently going through a pandemic, that students have been increasingly better and better prepared for the major, or they're not as well prepared as you would like them to be?
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't say that they're better and better prepared. Just being comfortable with the technology doesn't mean that you know how that you know computer science. It doesn't mean that you're comfortable coding just because you're comfortable as a user, right? Um, and that sometimes can give a false confidence to the students that, well, if I can play video games, I can definitely make them, and also if I can think up all kinds of uh, scenarios for video games, right? Scripts and artwork for video games. That's all that's needed, and then I'm done, and I can create video games. So that can definitely give a false sense of comfort with the material. Um, but yeah, at the same time, obviously, depending on how many classes they took in high school, there's some of them do have some programming knowledge. Again, computer science is not required in New Jersey high schools. So there are actually high schools where computer science is not taught at all. Even if it is, computer science is not a high school graduation requirement. So we do see a lot of students who don't have that, and as I said, that's totally fine. We expect that. We know that is the reality, and our intro course to computer science really does not require any programming knowledge coming in.
It's kind of interesting because I I know of like kids who learn robotics in high school. They're in competitions. Um, I've heard of people who like to code, and then there are all these organizations for kids who can code while they're still in elementary school.
Yes.
But how much of that skill set goes with you as you get to college? Because what you might have learned as a 10-year-old might be obsolete by the time you're 18.
Uh, well, the technology may be obsolete, but you do learn the fundamentals. Programming for now still has the same structure that it had for decades. If once we switch to quantum computing, things will change radically. But ultimately, most of the programming relies on the same programming structures, the if statements and the for loops are still driving most of our code. So if you learn that in elementary school or in middle school, that's great. That is a wonderful tool, just for what we call computational thinking, just for realizing how computers work. Just this whole paradigm of, well, you're giving the computer commands, you're writing up an algorithm, you're writing up a set of directions. Really, that's what the algorithm is, right? Like a recipe or a set of directions for the computer to follow. And whether you learn that skill set in elementary school on the code.org website, or using Scratch, or you learned it in high school and they threw you straight into Python or Java, um, that initial skill set is very valuable, and really understanding how to set up a problem algorithmically, and how to think about how you're going to use the computer to solve a problem.
Now, there are people, I've worked with people who are interested in computer science, and yet at the same time they say, I'm interested in engineering. They might apply to one school for computer science. They might apply to one school for engineering. They might apply to another school for data science. It's kind of like they're shopping to get in a school.
Yeah.
And from my perception, now I'm a non-programmer, non-mathematician, non-scientist person. Um, it seems like these things are all different disciplines, and you're going to learn something different if you whichever one you choose. So, like is the person who would be a good computer scientist someone who'd be a good data scientist, would be a good mathematician, would be a good engineer? I can't really tell.
Well, I like to say that a good computer scientist will be good at a lot of other fields. Computer science can be applied in a lot of other fields. So a good computer scientist, if they want to, if they're interested, they will be a good data scientist. They will do well in applying their field to math. Um, with the relationship with computer engineering is a little different, at least the way it's set up at TCNJ. Computer engineering deals more with the hardware, and computer science deals with more of the software. So if you're interested in building hardware, if you're interested in detail as to how those electronic circuits work, the ones that make the computer work, then I recommend computer engineering. Now, as a computer engineering major, you do have to learn a good deal of computer science as well, and many of the the computer engineering major actually requires a number of courses that we offer. So their majors will come and take computer science courses. The job market out there is skewed towards computer science. There's more software application jobs out there. So a lot of the computer engineers end up taking computer science jobs. Now, computer science, that is the science that really makes computers solve problems in everywhere, pretty much in every area of our life these days. So really studying algorithmic processes that describe and transform information, thinking about what can be efficiently automated. So we'll obviously teach our students a little bit about the hardware, because you need to understand hardware in order to understand why the software is required to have the structure that it does. And so computer architecture is a required course in our major. But our focus, other than that, our focus is really, and even with that, even with computer architecture, our focus is on how computers work and how we use computers to develop algorithms to solve problems. So it's really algorithmic problem solving that we focus on. Now, you also mentioned data science. How does that come in? Well, data science is an interdisciplinary field. You'll find computer scientists, and you'll find mathematicians and statisticians working in data science. They all have their purpose but I think in general, before getting into the fundamentals of data science, a little bit of fundamentals of your field are required before you go into the breadth that an interdisciplinary field requires. It's always a good idea to gain some fundamentals in computer science. So we actually at TCNJ we offer a specialization in data science. What that means is that you're still taking the required computer science courses. Now, part of the required computer science courses is the computer science options, we call them. You have to choose at least 3 courses, advanced courses in a variety of fields of computer science, such as artificial intelligence, machine learning, computer graphics, databases. Now, for a data science specialization, will require students to pick courses in the fields that work with data science, such as artificial intelligence and machine learning and natural language processing. And then a student at TCNJ also has some room for just free electives where they take whatever they're interested in. Well, we'll ask them to use some of those free electives to build up on their statistics knowledge too, beyond the one course that is required for all computer science majors. We'll ask for some additional statistics courses there. And so a data scientist will be at the core, right? Originally at the foundation will be a computer scientist who will have all that knowledge, and then on top of that will know how to use computer science with data in the service of whatever application they need, using the big data to create models, to do analysis, to make some predictions, right? That's what data science does.
I read your biography before I came on, and you went to the University of Rochester.
Yeah.
For your advanced master's and your doctorate. That's known as a research university.
Yes.
Much like Princeton or Johns Hopkins, that kind of school. And often you have people who are looking at TCNJ who might have applied to those schools, and they might have applied to schools that are sort of in between, that more undergrad focus, like a Lehigh or Villanova as an example. TCNJ is primarily an undergraduate school. Very, very few, only like 10% of the students are pursuing graduate degrees at all there. A lot of them were education degrees. Now there's a business degree and a public policy degree. What are the advantages of studying computer science at a school that primarily teaches undergrads versus one that has a big graduate department? I mean, I'm thinking of the more infamous ones like the University of Washington, the Paul Allen School, or Berkeley, which are they're big about graduate education. What is the difference between being an undergraduate at TCNJ in this major or a liberal arts college in this major versus being at a big university or a research university like Rochester?
I think the big difference is the attention that a student gets from the faculty. So all our courses are taught by us, by the faculty, by the full-time faculty. And that doesn't just mean lectures, but also labs and recitations. Our class size at TCNJ is capped at, in computer science, is capped at 24. So our lectures are very small sections of 24 students, where starting with computer science 1, I'm in the room, or one of my colleagues is in the room. Give us 2 or 3 weeks, we know everybody by their first name. It's just an entirely different atmosphere where we know our students. This is our passion, and we are teaching them. rather than the other schools that you mentioned, where they will get a lecture from the professor in a big lecture hall with, depending on the school, but several hundred, right? 100 to 400 or 500 students in a lecture hall for computer science one. And then they will go into a lab section with a teaching assistant who is a graduate student. Well, we don't have a graduate program, so we don't have graduate students. We don't have teaching assistants. We are doing all the grading. We're doing all the labs. We're doing all the office hours. So definitely the attention in class from the first course that you take in the major all the way through the end. The other thing is research opportunities. So just because we're primarily undergraduate and undergraduate exclusively in computer science institution, that doesn't mean we don't do research. We, in fact, emphasize research a lot at TCNJ. Throughout the institution, not just in computer science, but all our majors, and all faculty have a research program, and that research program runs with the help of undergraduate students who get the hands-on experience in class. Sometimes I'll bring in a research question into or the latest thing that I found through my research, I'll bring it into class. Or students have the opportunity to do a mentored research individually with us as an add-on to their schedule. So they have the opportunity to work hands-on at a level where most undergraduates don't have that opportunity at other institutions. Now, I'm not saying, obviously, there's the couple top star undergrads at the big schools that you mentioned who will do that, but at TCNJ, everybody's encouraged to try out research and see what it's like. And there's no such thing that, oh, you can't touch this camera or you can't touch this robot because it's really expensive and you're only an undergraduate and then this is reserved for graduate students. No, we don't have graduate students. So if we have the tools, then they're here for you.
How large are the introductory courses in mathematics and statistics?
I think they go up to maybe 30 something, maybe 40.
So you're never going to have
So
100.
some of there will be some, I think, in 30 something in I heard in math. Um, Sciences will have a double section for the lecture, but then they split for the lab, and again, still no TAs, so they split for small labs with the professor.
Now, does your department work with a math department to have a mathematics course for the computer science major? Or
Yes, absolutely. So what I mentioned, the calculus, the linear algebra, the statistics, they are offered by the mathematics department, and we work closely with our colleagues in math just to make sure that that the topics that are covered in those courses are the topics that we need for our major.
would you say, would your faculty be more collegial than, let's say, it might be at a big school?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Yeah, we, again, because we're small, we pretty much all know each other. We meet at various meetings. So we do all kinds of administrative and service work together as well. And yeah, definitely we sit down and we discuss course content. We also have collaborative research programs. So research applications. Over the years, I have worked with with faculty from biology, physics, even music, on a variety of collaborative projects. And it's easy. It's the type of thing where you can, just walk up to someone and then say, hey, I saw one of your presentations, or I saw on your website that you're interested in this, and it is expected, and we know that you won't be turned down. It's just that kind of atmosphere. And the same goes for our students. They can double major, they can minor. I mentioned physics as a collaboration. Just last year, I had a student who was a computer science major and a physics minor, and he was very interested in a research topic in the physics department. So he worked with a physics professor there for a couple of semesters, and then towards the end, in his senior year, he said, well, okay, so but there's definitely computer science application in here, more than just simple coding, but we can solve some problems using the computer. And so he was the one who basically had us sit down together, myself and his physics professor. And sometimes it's the students who bring the collaboration together, and they'll say, I'm interested in both and I want to do something together, can you help me out? And we'll be happy to, and we'll be happy to discover new collaborations that way.
Yeah, that's interesting because I think with sometimes I hear about like cognitive science, where someone in psychology might need to know about AI and machine learning, or things in economics, where there are different models. And kind of if someone needed like an elective what would be an elective course for computer science major, or success in another major like psychology or economics, can they get in that course, or do they need to take the if they, assuming they could take the prerequisites, do they get in that course, or do they get bumped out of that course?
They can usually get in. Yeah, absolutely. Yes, you're right. The prerequisites, and they can get into these courses, and they usually count. So TCNJ has a liberal learning core, which means that we are requiring all our students, all our majors, to take a few gen ed courses, if you like. We call them liberal learning. So even though they're majoring in computer science and they're taking some science courses as well, but they're required to take courses in history and psychology and English, also a foreign language. So we're really looking to provide our students with a well-rounded education, and sometimes it's these courses that allow students either to pursue a passion that they knew about, or they make them discover a new passion and look for connections across fields.
Is it difficult being, at an undergraduate focused institution, is it difficult to keep up with the technology, especially the hardware? When equipment gets dated, or employers say, hey, we use this, and it's you're a generation behind. Do you find it's difficult to keep up with the hardware?
Well, I'd be lying if I'd say that it's the same as being at the big R1 institutions. Of course, it's a little harder, but we actually do have, first there's a lot of computer science these days that can be done easily on your laptop. I mean, it's really amazing the amount of technology that the average laptop user is, or the average iPhone user is, literally wasting. It's like literally wasted on us, the technology that is just not even used. So leveraging that already is huge. But we also have funding, and we also, through our research, apply for research grants. For example, to the National Science Foundation, we have been, many of our faculty members, we have been successful in obtaining these grants, and so that allowed us to purchase more technology. For example, we have a server cluster, the School of Science cluster of computers that we're very proud of. That for someone who's not in computer science, the fun way to describe it would be that we have our very own cloud on campus. So we like to think of cloud computing, and that doesn't actually happen in the cloud, but more likely in a big computing center somewhere, maybe in the desert, but not up in the cloud. And so we have our own, and it's in our STEM building at TCNJ in the computer science department. We have we share it with the entire School of Science, and it supports a lot of data science research and all kinds of other computer science and computing based science research. And that's also pretty unique, and it really allows students to try out and learn all kinds of technologies that they wouldn't be able to do just by using, some high school students might say, but I can do cloud computing right now. I can just get a server on AWS, on the Amazon servers, and just do something there. Absolutely, you can, but Amazon will limit you in various ways, and it won't provide the type of education that we can at TCNJ. And so you have the cluster right there. We have a dedicated system administrator who's very helpful with that. And
Are there any
so
are there any reasons why a PC or a Mac might be better in the classroom, in your classes?
Not really. These days we use them pretty much interchangeably. There are some platforms that some applications that might be developed better for one platform than the other. But we have them available for our students. We have PCs, we have Macs, and we also have PCs but running Linux. So our students have access to all three platforms, and we have, our labs are open, so we're not requiring students to have a computer. You could potentially, I think you should be able to go through our curriculum without owning even a computer. Now, I know everybody does, but there will be applications, there will be classes sometimes where you will feel like, well, you know what, my computer doesn't quite cut it for this, and you might just use your computer to log on to our personal cloud, as I said, onto our cluster, and use your laptop as a terminal. So, but yeah, either one is fine. If you look at us faculty, I think we have between us, with some of us use Macs, some of us use Windows machines. Some of us need to have both for various reasons. So,
Last question. You're going to have an incoming freshman class in a few months. What do you think some changes are going to happen in undergraduate education in computer science that they may happen to this next freshman class? They may happen, in a few years. What are some changes that you expect to see in computer science education at the undergrad level?
well, it's not really a radical change that I expect to happen. I think computer science is continuously changing. So chances are that by the time they graduate, the incoming students will probably learn some things differently than students who just graduated this past May. And but that's just how we roll. That's how computer science works. We update our courses every time I teach the same course. It's actually not the same course. I change the content a little bit. I might change the approach. We have over time we changed our approach a lot. We do a lot of hands-on learning rather than just the lecturing, and we can afford that, right? Because we only have 24 students in the classroom. So if you have several hundred, then you do have to lecture at them. But we don't really do that much in our classes anymore. There are new courses coming online, and all the time we offer new courses. Cybersecurity is the latest thing that we want to introduce as much as we can. We've had little bits and topics in our courses here and there, but we have a course right now, a brand new course that just ended, right? The semester is ending, on information system security. It's a special topics course. Next semester, we have a new course on secure coding. So these courses, we bring them in as initially as special topics courses, and after a few offering, if there's interest, if the real world looks like we'll be moving in that direction, and that is looks like a course that will be needed, then we'll just add it to our regular offerings. And so that's probably what we will do with some of these cybersecurity courses. So basically, yeah, just that, add more offerings and really keep things up to date. Not a radical change, but really a continuous change all the time.
Andrea, that was a perfect ending to this conversation. Thank you very much for your time and for talking with me today.
Thank you.